Hi everyone, welcome back to the Noobs YouTube channel. My name is Sheila, and in this video I will be showing you my portfolio pieces that were both accepted at Carleton and Ryerson. This is the first of the portfolio series, and Thomas and Charmaine will be posting theirs in the upcoming Sundays. We had very different portfolios, so definitely stay tuned for those. So there are three sections to this video. The first one is my Carleton portfolio, then my Ryerson portfolio, which is essentially all my Carleton pieces in addition to 6 extras. In the final section, I will be giving a few tips and I would be going over what I would have done differently. Let's get right into the video. So Carleton lets you apply with a minimum of 4 and a maximum of 8 pieces. The first 4 which are required do come with prompts, and the last 4 which are optional can be whatever that you want. So the first prompt, where I belong, was the hardest one for me. It took me such a long time to come up with an idea for it, and I literally finished it like a few hours before the deadline. So if you're interested, here's a description that I wrote in my portfolio for this piece. As the intermediary, I would like to deliver designs that are a compromise between delivering affordable homes for people while also protecting the environment. Oftentimes we see tall buildings that are evoking a sense of power over people, and overcrowded cities that are dominating nature. Anyways, the hand represents the designer, and the island that it holds symbolizes the design that integrates social and environmental sustainability. So next we have Hesitant Landscape, which I did in colored pencil and a bit of ink once again. So I actually used 2 of Tony Mafood's photos as reference. It's definitely an abstract approach to a hesitant landscape, but I'll try to explain as best as I can. So it's called give and take because typically people are so quick to accept favors and things, but when it's time to give back, people would forget the past good deeds and simply ignore those that need help, which is represented by the person is leaving. So basically the hesitant part is the person not wanting to give back, and the landscape is just the rocks and the flowers. And the next one we have Urban Rhythms. I used watercolor and white ink for this one. So my thought process for this piece is basically urban equals downtown and rhythm is equivalent to repetition. I used this photo of my friends and I as a reference and built a story around it. Here's the description. And in short, every time my friends and I would have a math test, we'd celebrate and relax by taking the bus and going downtown for pho after school. Nothing too deep about this one. I made up this story. We eating pho with this friend group was like a 1 or a 2 time thing. There was no repetition at all. But the good thing about art sometimes is that you can literally make up any explanation and you'll be fine. For the final prerequisite of the portfolio pieces for Carleton, we have unfinished but complete. Not gonna lie, this is my favorite out of all of my portfolio pieces. It took me almost all of winter break during my last year of high school. So the story behind this piece is that it's like an embodiment of the yin and yang, because streets tend to be chaotic and like loud at night, and then in the morning it dies down and become more peaceful and I guess at ease. Also, it's supposed to depict the top view of a mug. So the yin would be the outer parts that are darker, representing the hardness or the strength of the mug, whereas the inside parts where it's slightly shaded represents the yang, which is kind of like the emptiness of the mug. So the unfinished aspect of it would be the emptiness in the middle. However, referring back to the meaning or the story behind it of the yin and yang, and how, you know, this emptiness and fullness of like chaos comes together, bringing to balance, therefore making it complete. I hope that makes sense. So for the first of the optional drawings, I decided to include a portrait for this boy in Afghanistan. Typically architecture schools, especially Carleton, emphasized and discouraged on not including a portrait in your portfolio, but I included it because in a way there is this indirect connection between me and this boy from Afghanistan. We've never met, but through drawing we kind of interacted and connected in a sense. So yeah, that's it for this one. So moving on to the second optional piece, we have Spring Afternoons, which is the first and only 3D piece that I have in this portfolio. So as you can see, it is a floral arrangement, and the flowers that I used were Fujimums, Alstroemeria, Carnation, Lysianthus, Daisy, and Caspia. And the foliages I used were Leather, Parvifolia, and Italian Ruscus. But there's nothing too deep about this piece either. I just wanted to include it to show that I can work with three-dimensional objects, which was actually very handy because in our first semester of architecture school we had one class that heavily involved a lot of model making. Also, there is something spatial about floristry because in this piece I talked about how this floral arrangement would be seated around 6 to 8 people. So then I had to be mindful of how big I wanted to design it so that people around this floral arrangement can still see each other and interact with one another. Moving on to the third optional piece, we have a lesson. People tend to discourage including works that are not recent, but I wanted to include it because back then I wanted to pursue architecture so that I can, hopefully build these tall buildings and show them off one day. However, when I was applying for portfolios, I was not into that aspect of architecture anymore. Instead, I was more into sustainable, environmental, and affordable housing or architecture. That's why I titled it as a lesson, because in that 2-year period, the field of architecture that I wanted into managed to change. Also, another reason that I included this piece is to show that I have patience, because those dots literally was like the end of me. I was grade 10 when I did this. I was pulling all-nighters in grade 10 just for those dots. Anyways, that's all for this piece. Moving on to the next one. And finally, we have my last piece, which is called Living with Just Enough, which I actually did in Carleton's Imagine Architecture program. Now, through that program, I was able to experience that studio culture in a way, which was something that I found so cool. It was like, just being there there was something about it that was mesmerizing and inspiring, which was one of the aspects as to why I was drawn into architecture. If you want to check out the Imagine Architecture program, link will be down below in the description. At that summer when I made this piece, I was into watching Matteo Vella, and I was super into minimalism and all that. In a way, this piece is an appreciation for the way animals live, because they don't need, a bunch of things to be able to live. They just need a shelter, and they just do things that they need, which is basically resting and hunting for food, and that's it. They don't need to, hoard a bunch of stuff just to be able to live. And that kind of nomadic lifestyle, I wanted to illustrate it in a way. So that is all for the Carleton portfolio. Now we're gonna go into the additional pieces that I included for my Ryerson portfolio. East Coast 2019. So basically, the one in the middle is just a photograph of Peggy's Cove. Yeah, Peggy's Cove. And the ones on the side are just sketches that I took from the trip. That's it. There's nothing too special about this one. Next one we have I'm Not Okay. This is probably my worst piece. I don't know why I included it here. However, studying artists are important in learning about more of their style and how you can integrate it in your own work as well. So this one was inspired by Banksy. It's a social commentary art. It just talks about mental health and how people look like they're okay on the outside, but inside they're actually in pain. So yeah, this piece was just addressing the importance of mental health. In this next section, so this one, I'm pretty sure this is also from 10th grade, but it's called Magnification because it was a two-part drawing. The first one was the pencil drawing on top, and then we had to basically take a magnifier and just capture a part of that drawing and blow it up. So I did that in ink, which is the one at the bottom. Again, for this piece I did a lot of stippling, which is always fun. Next one we have Life and Death, which I actually have with me. This is what she looks like. I don't really keep my drawings. I tend to throw it away or donate it or give it away, but I have this one with me because it was inspired by Kellogg's Sloops, which is like my favorite artist. Oh, I have one of his prints. I don't know where to put it yet, but this is what she looks like. Anyways, back to the video. This piece was inspired by Kellogg's Sloops, as mentioned, and it was also inspired by Avatar: The Last Airbender. So the girl is Katara and the guy is Zuko. As seen in the show, waterbending can heal. However, it can also, be destructive through bloodbending. Zuko's power was seen as destructive at first. However, fire can also give life and warmth and energy. Both of these elements are able to, destruct. However, they can also give life. Second to the last, we have my texture studies. These are just sketches that I did from grade 10 to grade 11, I'm pretty sure. And essentially, I just wanted to show that I can work with pencil and I have patience and I have control with pencil. I guess that's basically it. And finally, we have Multicultural Mural, which is a collaborative mural that I did with a few of my friends back in my high school. This was like a pillar and we painted on it in our learning commons, which is essentially the library in my school. I wanted to include it because I wanted to show that I was involved in the community. Mind of when you're building your portfolio is that make sure you have a diverse mediums throughout your portfolio. Don't quote me on this, but I think one of the reasons as to why you should do that is because they're looking for people who can adapt to certain situations. So for one of our exercises during first semester was that we couldn't use glue for model making. You have to be able to adapt to not using glue, so being creative and using other types of ways to be able to, stick joints together without having to use glue. So that's when that open-mindedness and adaptability really shows through when you have a variety of mediums or drawings in your portfolio. So I highly recommend that. Another tip or like something that I wish I could have done better was taking better photos or like scanning them properly and maybe adding them into Photoshop. For example, for Life and Death, here's what it looks like from when I handed it in my portfolio a year ago, and this is how I would have submitted it today. So another thing that I wish I could have done differently is that I would have made my descriptions a bit shorter, and that is because your drawing should speak for itself rather than you having to explain everything. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Also, if you want to check out Charmaine and Thomas's video, please stay tuned. Those will be coming up in the upcoming Sundays. So see you in the next video. Bye! One last thing is that there is this Discord invite link in the description. There's a bunch of... It's for people who are applying into Canadian architecture schools. There's a bunch of portfolios pinned up in that server, so if you'd like to check it out, make sure to click on that link. Thank you.